Go on YouTube, is it?
There are not plans to go on YouTube, but if it does, I will certainly reach out. And
Oh
if
my.
you might be on there, I will certainly let you know. Yeah. Transparency is a key part of my integrity value. I will definitely be reaching out if that is the case. So, but this is our first time doing this, so I wanted to put it out there. Well, welcome everyone. We have
Welcome.
a nice intimate group this morning, so I'm really glad you're here. I'm Amy Johnson, for those of you who might not know, and I am a values and idea integrator. I've been working with the values and how to integrate them in business and life for decades now, and I'm just so happy to be able to share this work and work with all of you. And it's a really meaningful and fulfilling process. So I also want to introduce my friend and co-facilitator, Sheila Arthur, who's going to be here too today. We're going to all
Hi,
be.
everybody. I'm Sheila Arthur, and I am a mindset coach. And from my perspective, there's many doors that one can enter into to make shifts in their lives and to improve your lives. So this is another door that Amy introduced me to in a different way. I mean, obviously, I've worked with values and I have my own set of values that I live very closely with, but to actually talk about them and to provide a framework and a process for them has been really exciting because I get to see this whole process unfolding for people and the clarity and the wonderful ways that you get a chance to use your values and live them every day. So really excited about doing the work and excited about talking about it and integrating it and living with values as we go about our lives. So real excited about being here today. Thank you for coming.
So thank you, Sheila. I'm so glad you're with me on this journey too.
Yes. It's been great.
So today, today is talking about living with our values. So Sheila and I have also done a workshop called Discover Your Core Values and Creating Your Inner Compass to navigate these uncertain times. But today is more about how do you live it. So there's kind of two parts. There's naming it, discovering them, naming it, and then, okay, so now what? How do we live our lives? So the conversation today is going to be structured around checking in, answering questions you might have, and also getting clear what it means to have values and how to live them, and challenges that may arise from that, successes that may arise from that, and just what does it mean to do this every day. So that's kind of the intent for this conversation. So to get us started, I wanted to talk and just reiterate, what do we mean when we say values? Like, what is a core value? And that's an important place to start, because out in the world, values tend to have a general meaning. It's just a general word, values, and people are supposed to know what that means. What this work is about is getting very specific. So a core value is a single word or short phrase that connects you to your authentic self, your truest self. And it is your inner compass that helps define who you are, what you care about, and where you want to go and how to get there. Every day, we make micro decisions about our values. Or really, they're based on our values. We decide what to eat, what to wear, what to buy, how to spend our time and resources. And these decisions are often made habitually, they're often made automatically and unconsciously, and they happen all day long, whether you're clicking on your Amazon cart or deciding where to buy your coffee. So the process of discovering your values and then integrating them is one that helps bring the unconscious conscious. So you have more clarity when you're making your decisions. It feels more satisfying, and you're like actually accurately living in a reflection of yourself and what you care about. So there's a match there, and your decisions become more alive in that way, and it feels good. It just really does. Mind, body, spirit, it all just starts to align, and it feels different as you interact in your day. So this value-based approach just makes decisions easier too. It helps because then you know why you're making the decision. And so naming it just brings that all together, and it just feels good to be in alignment. There's so much going on that can get our attention that this work tends to help ground. and feel fulfilled. So naming our values and integrating our values is a process. It's not a one and done kind of a thing. Our values can kind of shift and change slightly as we go to different phases of our life. And then an important point, it's not about being perfect. It's not about upholding a standard set by somebody else of what I should value. It's actually about something very personal and intimate and authentic to one's own self.
Mhm.
And it's not another thing to beat ourselves up about not getting it right. Like, it's not another thing to be like, oh, I'm not living by my values. I suck. Like, no, 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 no. This is not the place for that. This is the place to just get clear, make a decision. And if we have to course correct, we course correct. I think it's really important because there's a lot out there telling us all the things we're doing wrong and that we're somehow broken. And I don't believe that at all. This is just, as Sheila said, another doorway and another way to really connect with ourselves and actually validate what we're doing right and what we're doing well. So it's a shift in perception is how I look at that. So that's important. We bring the unconscious conscious, so we help make that happen. And listen, it's complex out there. There is a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of uncertainty. Even 2020 has brought us a new level of uncertainty that we hadn't had. So for me, like, values work really helps ground that. And I find it important in my business, when my clients' business, to be able to build a business on that, naming our values, then integrating them. And integrating is what we're going to be talking about today, is just a strong foundation in which to build a life and work. I really believe it's an important thing each of us can do. When we talk about what we can control and what we can't control, this is one of those things that we can actually have sovereignty on and control. So with that, gonna like to turn it over to Sheila, who will kind of talk about what the structure is going to be today.
Okay, thank you, Amy. So this is the first time that we're doing this, and the exciting thing about this is that as I have been doing this work with Amy, I have experienced my own shifts in terms of the values, naming my values, and also just understanding in different ways how every day something is showing up that either points me in the direction of the values that I say are important or is moving me away from those that I constantly course correcting using my internal guidance system to assist me in the process. And we thought it would be great to just not have the values and put them somewhere, but to actually live and figure out how to embody them every day. Because for me, embodiment is a wonderful way of going through life feeling in alignment. So for me, it's important to embody my values and to live them all the time. So this process is really about discovery. It's about refinement. It's about clarity. And it's our job to encourage you in that process for yourself, wherever you are. However clear or unclear they may be for you, that's all fine. There's no right or wrong way or right or wrong place to be at any given moment. And it's very personal work. So this is really about focusing on you and your core values. You'll find that you'll be inspired by listening to what other people have to say about what their values are or how they express them, the unique word or phrase that they use that kind of encapsulates what they mean when they talk about values. And that's a wonderful thing. I mean, that's great. That's why we want to continue to have the conversation. So it's your opportunity to notice and to become more aware of the choices that you make in any given moment. As Amy talked about, all the micro decisions that we make, all the choices that we make that either open a door or close a door, that include or exclude, that do whatever they do that moves us either closer in alignment with living the way we want to live or moving us a little bit further away from that. So getting that clarity. And it's not about being judgmental, as she said, either, or being critical or hypercritical, or I should be here, I need to be here, or this is the right way. So we want to have room for that exploration and the lack of clarity that sometimes comes before clarity. It's important as well. Just want to point out the obvious. We're living in very polarizing times. I just want us to be all mindful of how easy it is to get dragged into conversations and discussions and get sidetracked from what's really important here today, which is talking about how we live our values. So it's really personalizing whatever's happening in the world. So just to have an awareness about that and to focus on how to integrate our values into our lives as we continue the discussion today. And just inviting you, and I'm sure this is not something that's new to anybody here, but it's okay to see the world differently. Just a reminder, And we all have unique lived experiences, and let's value and respect those differences as we move through this discussion today. And I'm just so excited to get it started. So thank you all again for being here. So with that, the question I want to know is what brings you here? What brought you here today? What brings you here today? And anybody can just share. Why are you here today? Yes, Patrice.
It was kind of perfect timing right now. I decided that a big shift was necessary in my world. And even though it was just a part-time, half-time job, I just left a realm that was not what I wanted to be doing. I just had been doing it for a couple of years. And I've always done things that were more rewarding, more in line with what's important to me instead of the minutia of a desk job sort of thing. So I finally, and even I was working for a couple of close friends, so it was hard to walk away. I didn't want to disappoint anybody. So that was big for me to finally be like, okay, it's time. So closed that door on Friday. And I'd been doing a lot of volunteer work, talk about, in the political realm with, and you guys can decide who I was calling for, but just as far as I got involved with this really great group that we were deep canvassing in the state of Wisconsin. And it was so great because it brought about kindness. And it wasn't, if I got somebody that was 100% voting for the other candidate, it wasn't about, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. It was more, you know what, it's important, especially for us women, to be getting out there and voting. So I totally appreciate that, I'm not going to be changing your mind today, but, thanks for chatting with me, sort of thing. And it just brought back that value of, you guys are all seeing it with your friends on social media and everything. Everybody's just so mean right now. And it unfortunately hasn't quite gotten better yet, but, yeah, I'm over it. So I just keep going back to that joy and kindness and how perhaps I can bring it more into my everyday life and, on a practice what you preach level, I guess. So that's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and completely understood. I love the word kindness. It's a great word, and it has such deep meaning. Just in terms of I choose the word from my value is compassion, which has embedded in it the kindness, and really being able to see and appreciate and make room for the differences. Because there's a lot, and in terms of the social media, it's like I've totally been avoiding that, and I'm so grateful. So I'm not really seeing what's happening out there so much. Like,
You're smart.
That has to do with healing and presence for me. So it's like, when I get on that track, I'm just far away from myself. Yeah. So that's what I've been doing. But I'm grateful that you're here today because, learning how to live that and to bring a little bit more joy and kindness into your world and your life is just an amazing thing to do.
Yeah, I just want to add to Patrice, I'm so glad you're here. And it just speaks to exactly what we're talking about here and how to walk the walk, these things that are not easy to do. What does that really mean? And what I've really enjoyed about the process for myself and what I've seen in others is when you name your values and it takes on this other power and it's like an internal thing. So each of those decisions we make to choose where to volunteer our time or our job, we can connect it. So for me, my value of connection includes the compassion, belongingness, beingness with another person. So even though my value isn't necessarily kindness, I relate to your, if that kindness becomes your word, it makes sense to me. And that's a way I can kind of relate in a different way. So the words we choose I typically recommend 5 to 7 values because more can be overwhelming. And less than that, often we're missing something that is really important to us. So the idea of, okay, what is that word that has that energetic feel to it, the essence of what really matters to us? Mm-hmm. So I just share that and really welcome you to be a part, to be engaged in this, because it's actually kind of fun. We like to have fun with it too, because it is about life and joy and spending it in a way that really matters. And when we're in alignment, then it becomes even that much more fun and intentional in that regard. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So anyone else want to talk about what brought you here today?
I can talk.
Hi, Jen.
Hi. Hi. So I saw Amy speak about 2 weeks ago at a transcendental meditation talk, and I've done some values work a couple of years back, and I don't want to say I should be living to my values because we've already kind of touched on that, but it's like I just want to refocus on some of the values and maybe adjust things. And one thing that I heard her say was, one of my values is also sustainability, but convenience right now, with like takeout food and stuff. I'm like, it's just reminding me like there are some better choices perhaps that I could be making that are more in line with my values. So the timing was right. It was good to see her then. And in this, I have the day off today, except I'm getting some work texts. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's just a good time to be refocused on my own values. Okay.
Thank you, Jen. I really relate, especially I remember in March when everything was disposable. Suddenly I had wipes in my house, with the pandemic. I hadn't had a wipe, and then I couldn't even get a paper towel. And so it was interesting. I actually, it was funny because right before the pandemic, I decided I'm breaking up with Costco paper towels because I didn't want to use that many paper towels, even though you can compost them and things. It was so wasteful the way I was using them. I have 2 dogs, 2 kids. I like to use them a little too much, right? But then the pandemic came and I'm like, wait a second, how do I navigate this? My value of sustainability, reverence for the natural world, and whether it be fear or convenience or necessity in the moment. And that's what this is about, right? And like, it isn't about should, but it's like, okay, now I can kind of course correct a little bit intentionally and really see and define what it means to me in that regard too. So I'm really glad you're here. And it's so important. We can do things like break up with paper towels.
Mine is takeout food. It's so hard to break up with those containers. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. And, I think part of it is bringing attention to that. Like where, I have thought about where I order my food from. And there's something, I'm working on a way to help define that. Like, where do we order food from? What do they use? Can I call the restaurant and ask them to use a different takeout container, use less styrofoam, I don't know if anyone's using styrofoam anymore, but whatever they're using, call attention to it. I love Trader Joe's and I shop there quite a bit. And I love a lot of the values that they have. They seem to have fun there. It's very welcoming. There's a lot of things I really like about it. And I noticed they use a lot of plastic, vegetables wrapped in plastic, things are in plastic. So this was during the same time period I went and I emailed them from their website about it. I did not receive a response. So next time, and I was there the other day, but I didn't do it because I was in a hurry. But next time I'm going to go and talk to the manager, and I'll just keep doing that in the moment. Just ask. It's not like attacking anyone, but like, is there another way to do this? And the more we can use our voices in that way, the more we can actually make change. And that for me, I'll still shop at Trader Joe's. It doesn't mean I have to blacklist them. There's some companies that I'm choosing not to purchase from intentionally, but this is one where I'm like, okay, they could do better in this arena. And it's not, even if it's different, there's so much more technology too coming out in terms of innovation, in terms of types of packaging, that I'd like them to try to do that. So that's where that kind of comes, and bringing intention to it is really, it starts to feel good and be living in alignment in that way. Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing that very kind of everyday decision we make. So anyone else?
Sure, I can speak. Hi, I'm David.
Hi, David.
Similar to Patrice, I think it's just the perfect time. So thank you all very much for hosting this. And a friend of mine forwarded Amy's email to me. I'm kind of during the pandemic, I have stepped out of a corporate marketing job and am looking to apply my experience to something much more meaningful and impactful, be that social impact as yet to be determined, but it really is about alignment and trying to, apply my skills, experience in something that has more meaning and impact. So there's a lot of gratitude for my, former self to put me in the position to do this, and then really looking for that connection and what motivates me in the next phase.
You mentioned meaningfulness and impactfulness, and it sounds like as you think about what your values are, that is clearly a direction that is important for you, and values, however you express them, that are super important. And I think that as Amy was saying, we all go through phases or periods of time in life when it's important to revisit those and to understand what is operating at this particular moment, because however we name our values, there's so many other values that are underpinning that. And where the emphasis is going to shift depending upon what's going on. So at this point in your life, leaving something behind and opening another door is like a perfect time to reflect on what the values are and to get that clarity, because those will be the drivers for you. That'll be the driver for you as you move forward, as you look for other work that is meaningful and impactful. And I'm sure there are other adjectives and other values that will fall into that as well, that will be important in it. And it's great to enter into a job, or great to enter into a new opportunity thinking that way, instead of just oh, okay, so this pays the bills, or this is, not being intentional about it. So that intention and naming it it's super important, because it creates this level of clarity that's wow, okay, so I can accept this or not accept this. I can see how it fits or how it doesn't fit, because there's a framework there. And so that's the beauty of doing this work. And so you were in the right place for it. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Jerome.
You're muted, Jerome. You gotta, yeah, there you go.
That's not a first. I've been working with Amy for the last little over a month, almost a month and a half, and on a project that I've had on the back burner for about 20 years, and just really wanted to take the opportunity to, especially with the COVID and refocusing a lot of my life, and the fact that I'm 77 years old, and I'd like to accomplish this, bring this project to fulfillment before it's too late. And so I've been working together with Amy for as I say, for what, six weeks or so now, and been doing these little workshops. I did the last one, and it's the whole. I've had led a very value-oriented life for the past almost 50 years now, and didn't really realize it. It's just sort of took all my values for granted, and never really got clarity on them. And like I think Sheila, Amy said in the beginning, we live in a very, very chaotic world. And that's the truth. We really do. I thought I could figure it out. I've been trying to figure it out for 77 years, but to no avail. But what I realized from doing this workshop is that what I can figure out is what my values are in the midst of all that chaos. What is my guiding light? Where the hell am I going? Or would I like to go anyway? And this, as everybody has said, this has facilitated me to actually focus on it. And actually, to tell you the truth, the past couple of weeks, I was kind of overwhelmed with the assignment, in a sense, because my values, if I sit down and try and sort them out, the challenge was to get them down to 5 or 6. That was the challenge, because there's a million things I thought about. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. Blah, 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 blah. Million areas of life, like, don't use styrofoam cups, well, that's a value, but where does it get, and I had all these big lists and lists and lists, and finally was able to boil it down to 6, and it simplifies things. It simplifies my self-concept. Who the hell am I in this world? What's my relationship as an individual to everybody else, and to society itself? And so it's been very, very rewarding to me. So I'm really grateful to be here, and grateful for you guys to be in here too, because I couldn't be here all by myself.
God forbid what we would say or do, huh? I love it. I really like what you said, Jerome, about figuring out your guiding light. Because thinking about values that way, I'm always amazed at the phraseology. The phrases that people use are so important, and they are so evocative. Because it really is. We call it a compass. It's a guiding light. It's your beacon. It's your internal guidance system. However you describe it, it's that thing that really anchors you in doing the things that are important to you and living in a way that's important to you. So, and I appreciate you also saying that it simplifies things. The process may not be easy, and it's a little bit arduous, and it's like crazy making and overwhelming, but the result is this simplification. So it's simple. It's simple for me to think about when something is happening, and things are happening all the time. I mean, if I just even reflect on the election, and Amy and I have talked about this, and without getting into political things, I think that the biggest thing for me, because I value healing is a key value for me. It's not only healing myself, healing the planet, healing other people, healing relationships, creating that level of healing so that we can move forward. So when I think about, how adversarial it's been, there's still a part of me that healing is super important. So when I think about healing as this guiding value for me, I'm going to have a little bit more compassion. I'm going to have a little bit more of a sense of allowing for other people, of acceptance of differences that might not be present for me if healing wasn't such a strong value for me. And then moving forward, as we move forward, what does that look like? How can I use what's so important to me? How can I help to heal? Because we certainly need a lot of that, right? So it's it creates that level of clarity. So it's very clear to me that whatever I do, however I am, it has to involve that, because that's such an important part of who I am and what I value. And you will find that to be true for you as well, as you name them and rename them and think about them and live from them and embody them every day. So thank you for that, Cheryl.
Anyone have any questions after that? Thank you, Sheila.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions coming up when you hear everyone talking about it? Values?
Well, I don't know if it's any of my business, but Jerome, if you're willing to share, I'm curious what your 20-year-old project that was on the back burner for so long was.
It's a way to generate electricity using one of the laws of nature that nobody's ever tapped into before. The same force that creates the hurricanes that are being so devastating to that energy that creates a hurricane is also tameable, and nobody's ever thought of it before.
Like centrifugal force sort of thing?
Similar, it's called the Coriolis effect. The reason why, well, basically everything in the universe is spinning, everything. The earth is spinning, the sun is spinning, this earth is spinning around the sun, everything is spinning, and it seems like the earth that we're sitting on right now is turning, right? And it seems to us like it's turning in place, but it's really not. It's rotating in a vortex because it's traveling through space at the same time. So it's not just spinning in a circle, it's spinning in a spiral, just like our DNA.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Everything in the universe, including from the smallest little particle, they just discovered these little nanoparticles out in space, floating around in space. And they are spinning at over 1 billion rotations per second, spinning
Wow.
over 1 billion times every second. That's fast, And it's sort of
That's a cool project. That's quite the the undertaking. I was thinking, more in terms of like, a wood shop project, putting on a little backpack. Oh no. Go big or go home. Jeez.
if talking about simplicity, that's exactly what it boils down to. It's what I ordered, an essential part that I just discovered recently about the way this is going to work. I just ordered a Lazy Susan on Amazon. Lazy Susan that you put the spices on in your cabinet, and that spins in the same kind of rotation, right? It rotates in a perfect circle, and so essentially it boils down to something that's so simple, so absolutely infinitely simple that nobody's noticed it before. It's like when the big fish that came over to the little fish, and he said to the little fish, "How's the water?" And the little fish said, "What's water?"
Well, that's cool.
That phenomenon.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I think too, what's important, one of the things that this process, I think, Jerome, you spoke of this too, that when you have a project that has the potential, like a big idea too, what values can do is ground it into reality. And we've talked about this. It helps make it real in a sense, because you're getting really clear about, yes, obviously there's the science and the engineering and the creativity and all of that help make it, but the values can help define it and make the general much more specific and personal. And that way it helps. Sometimes the general can block things, help kind of overwhelm us and make us stuck. Like, how do I help the world? The world is in crisis, right? It's this big thing. But even just how Jerome took the idea of a hurricane and brought it down to something safe and simple and powerful, it's that same idea. The overwhelm can be brought down into that, okay, what really matters to me? What are my values? What is it that I can do? And the general stuff, it is overwhelming. I cannot fix the world. Like, it's not, but it all matters to me. So what can I do? And so that's where the integration really matters. And what I like to see too is that new ideas come from it too. It's like it's an opportunity for like a new perspective. When you do the simplifying or the identifying process, the discovering, things you hadn't thought of will suddenly appear. So both for you, Patrice, and David, or for all of us really, when you're starting to think of something new, the values work is really helpful, because all of a sudden, oh, I'm inspired by this thing I didn't even realize. And this is an idea I didn't even realize I had. And new things can come of that. So it's new innovations or new ways of thinking about something, new revenue streams that are done that feel good, new businesses, and even just new conversations, which then create new relationships and or new relationships with the same people even, right? Like just new ways to talk about ourselves and what matters to us, because then it's just coming from a real point of clarity. And it's kind of exciting in that way too, because it's just like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's cool, and maybe we can, find a new way to think of it. And that's how stuff happens. We open up our minds in a way. But I don't know if anyone else practices yoga, but for me, like what happens a lot is like the foundation has to be there. Like I have to be grounded. I have to be in my legs. I have to be solid. And the values through these processes create that foundation to rely on, and then allows these open to possibilities, these new ideas, these new innovations. That's what's it creates that foundation and that kind of framework that allows this other stuff to happen. And then it's kind of like that dance between like the practical and the, you know, the new idea and how to execute that. So, and I call myself, I mean, I'm a values and idea integrator. So that's where it happens. You then start to map that out, and that gets really fun. And it kind of, anything can happen really done that way. And when you build a new business on that way, or build a new invention or part of your life from this new mindset, it's so satisfying and rewarding. So it just does match your skill. Then you can match your skill set with your values. It's just, you know, super cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Let's see. Anyone? Sheila, do you have any questions you want to, or anyone?
Oh, I was just thinking about the word that came up for me was elegance. There's an elegance and simplicity that we are naturally drawn to. And it's part of our experience of the natural world. It's part of our experience of the order of things, that even if we can't name it, we can feel it and know it. And so when you can create that kind of elegance and simplicity in terms of understanding what's important to you. I think in the workshop, I remember talking about how when I finally looked at what my values were and really identified them and named them, they were the values that I had as a child. They were the values that I came into the world with. I was able to articulate what has been the guiding force of my entire life in a way that made such sense. And there was an elegance and simplicity to that, because it's like, yes, it's like naming it, but knowing it. So it's like when you're in touch with them that way, it's like, wow, okay, so this now makes sense. This gives me the freedom to then do things, to create, to connect, to explore, to impact the world based on my own way of doing it, based upon this set of values, which is not unique, but it's uniquely my combination that I then go forth into the world with these values up front. And everybody's just going to be different. So it's like it's exciting to think of when I think about it that way. It's really exciting because it's the kind of thing. It's like when you know truth. It's like you don't, it's like something that you feel on every dimension, right? All of these spinning atoms and everything else. It's like you just know it to be true, right? And it feels right. So I love thinking of getting in touch with values from that place of elegance and simplicity, and then how you can then go forth and continue to use them every day and let them be the guiding light for you. So that's what came up for me.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So who would like to share a value maybe that is currently, we talked a little bit, Jen, you shared about sustainability as being up for you. Is there who would like to share a value that's currently active in your life that you're thinking about, or is there something they want to share about that?
I can share again.
Really?
So I had done like some values work a while back, and I'm looking at the Post-it that has the 6 things on it right now, and I'll just share them all. Why not? It was gratitude, sustainable, growth, reliability/stability, which I guess is 2 in 1, practicality, and balance. But lately I've been really wanting to like kind of add into the mix consistency. I tend to procrastinate. And I used to work from home. I started working in an art gallery, took a pay cut, so I wasn't working from home anymore. And here we are working from home again. So just kind of working on that consistency piece is really something I'm focusing on right now.
You mentioned stability. You said stability and something else too, right?
Reliability/stability.
Reliability, stability, and consistency.
Yeah, maybe
right.
all looped into one, but yeah.
Right. I see the thread, and how the it's so amazing. I was on my own journey of like moving out into the world again in a different way, right when COVID hit as well. So it was like, okay, well, not timing's not now, So it's like always having to kind of just refocus and work with where you are. Just this is where things are, and I'm wondering how you feel about your level of patience with your process around creating that reliability, stability, how it all fits in together, consistency.
Yeah, I'm very hard on myself. So there's a lot of like, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. Why are you doing this? And like, I've been talking, I have a review coming up at work, and I'm so concerned because at home I procrastinate all the time. But like, I was talking to somebody and she was like, your boss doesn't know that you sit around and procrastinate all day. Like, don't bring it up, and don't beat yourself up about it. Because again, in the talk that we did 2 weeks ago that Amy was a part of, I had brought up that procrastination was an issue, and no less than like 5 women after that also brought up the same issue. So it's like, I'm not the only one. I've been procrastinating since I was in college. This isn't new, but it's just like, I'm focusing on it now, and I am growing and I am progressing. And so it'll come.
Right.
Yeah.
So how it's showing up for you, right? On a daily basis.
Mhm.
And that's always the challenge. It's like what Amy said, there's no perfection. It's not like you arrive at the destination and then it's like, okay, let's just kick back and everything is good. I mean, there's always more, right? Because things are always shifting, and we live in times, I mean, change is like the constant, right? I mean, it sounds so trite to say it, but it's so true. Because things always are shifting around us. So it's like having that level of like, okay, I'm doing it. I mean, like participating in things like this really help to kind of anchor you into like a less of a place of procrastinating and more of a place of like, okay, let me be consistently seeking consistency. I mean, that's helpful. It's like, so in the work that I do as a mindset coach, it's always around reframing, because I think that there's such power in how we reframe something. It's the story we tell, a very familiar story, but there's always another story that's a little bit more empowering. And it's not that it's false, but it's just a slight shift that really helps to get you where you want to go, right? So it's looking at, this is a process, is like one way of doing it, and every time that you're patient with yourself and you say, okay, let yourself off the hook and acknowledge it, that's giving you room to continue doing the work, instead of, and that's, I mean, procrastination is not a foreign word to me either. As much as I'd like it to be different. I mean, so I find that I'm constantly challenged with different things too, like the values that are up for me. And I'll share one with you a little bit later on. What value is showing up in my life right now. It's because it's like, wow, it's just right there for me. So it's like, obviously I've got some work to do in this area, because this is what keeps coming up for me. And that's useful information, so nothing's wasted.
Jen, if I can say something, because it's really interesting that you're about to have the job review at work, because I was just reading and talking about the concept that we're our own worst boss. We would never give a review to an employee, to a friend, to a peer that the way that we judge ourselves. So, I mean, I think take some of that, and, in a work context, it's completely different than the conversations you're having with yourself at home. And we should apply more of that the same way that we would talk to others, to ourselves. So just something to think about.
Thank you, David. That's such a great way, a good reminder too. And how we talk to ourselves is a value in and of itself as well. And procrastination, I mean, what strikes me as so beautiful too is the consistency is in your life. I've seen you twice in 2 weeks, right? For 2 values conversations, you showed up twice. consistently. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I say, let's celebrate that. And
Absolutely.
and that's why this work can be so validating, because when we take the time, and it would be interesting in the process, if you're open to do the Discover Your Core Values, either the workshop as a group or on your own, is that all those three may come together, and you'll find the one, the stability, I think reliability, consistency, all of those may go under a one that is the essence of it. It may be one of those words, it may be a different word, and that will resonate in a different way. And then procrastination actually won't even be part of the conversation, because it'll be seen in a whole different light, if that makes sense, because it'll just be, you'll just see it differently, right? So, because creativity is one of my values. So time that I'm not doing, being a human doing, is really important for my value of creativity, because it can look like wasted time. Sometimes it's just doing mundane things, but that's sometimes when I have the best ideas. The creative comes from sorting, old envelopes like I did the other day. Now, on the surface, that would, meet a certain value. But it's also creative time, because I like paper. I like the way it feels. I'm, consolidating the ones and trying to put the ones I'm giving away. It's silly. But identifying, not silly, okay. But identifying that supports my value of creativity gives it a little bit more of an oomph and less of that negative talk, because I can connect it in that way. So it's really, because part of the process is we actually define the words too.
Yes.
I'm admitting someone wanted to join us a little bit late, but I'm happy to have whoever can be here. So that's why this is such an important part, having these integration conversations, because it's a dance between the naming process and then the integration process, and how to connect those dots, really, and live the life we want to live. How do you live your values once you have them, without using them as another thing, like I said earlier, to beat ourselves up about? That is not the purpose of this work whatsoever. And we can't do it in a vacuum. Like, having these kind of conversations where David can offer really important perspective, and sharing, and Patrice sharing about compassion, and Jerome sharing about his invention, all give us ways to be out in the world that's a little bit different than we had before we came, because we're willing to talk about it from this kind of deeper perspective. So I think that's it's fun to me to be able to have a different kind of lens on it, and to remind ourselves, so that sometimes when the voice comes up, like, okay, I hear you, voice telling me I'm procrastinating. I don't know if that's really true anymore. And there's, that's a much longer conversation, but it's interesting, that comes up.
I'm laughing because, Amy, as you were talking about the whole sorting thing, I immediately went to, that's her sorting meditation. Like when people sweep, or they do the walking meditation, or just washing dishes, sometimes because it's the things that are mindless that way, that really invite, the quieting of the mind, and you're just focused on the activity itself. And there's a lot of creativity that can then pour into that experience, right? It opens the door for that kind of thing. So it's like, there's nothing silly about using sorting envelopes as a way of as that door, right, to enter into creativity, because there's like so many different doors, right? For all of these things, and it's figuring out what works for you, what makes sense, for you in your life, and then using that, because it's all valuable.
So let's see, do we want to, Sheila, what do you think? Is it a good time to play some I Spy, or is there something else you had in mind at the moment, or?
I wanted to ask the question about if anybody has the experience of managing values that seem to conflict with one another. Like you've got two values and there's something happening, and it's like, how do you find yourself in the experience of values conflicting with one another, and how do you sort through that?
Well, I can tell you something that came up last night. I was on a another Zoom call, and it was all about how, as a from a on a parent level, how we're supposed to help our kids, having two boys in high school, help them through this hybrid of being in school 2 days a week, and yeah, talk about values. You don't want to be over commandeering or like coming down hard when they're good kids, they're getting great grades, but you also want to set parameters. So I mean, I don't know if that's, yeah, I mean, it's definitely conflicting values, because you're just trying to figure out how to do your best and muddle through without, they're doing all right, but the social or the amount of digital time is becoming it's problematic for me and my husband, but they don't see it that way. And just the releasing of letting them do what is working for them. It's hard. I don't know if that's like quite exactly what you're getting at, but it's a struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like whatever comes up for you. I mean, I'm going to have Amy speak to this in just a moment, but just in terms of, I mean, being a parent, I haven't been in the role of parent for, except for in small, I didn't have any children of my own, but I've certainly, just had to like navigate with my nieces and other folks who've been in my care around just that balance. I mean, the balance in and of itself of wanting, giving people the freedom and the non-interference, and just allowing people to blossom and grow and learn from mistakes, and also setting boundaries that are like healthy and helpful boundaries. And, how much do you, get involved, and how much do you stay? I mean, that's like huge. It's like, gosh, it's like, that's the dance of being a parent, right? Of figuring that out so that you're creating, people, young people, like you're a steward, creating people that, that get that then have that internal piece for themselves, and they can start to draw upon, based upon, what you've done to kind of create that. So that's like, yeah, that's like big stuff, really big stuff, and I'm sure, Amy, you can speak to that too, in terms of your own experiences.
Yes, I would say, thank you, Sheila. It's really true. And I think I've, in my adult life, I've had to recognize that I can have two feelings at the same time. My daughter decided to go to boarding school at 16, and it was her choice, and she wanted to go and apply. And I can be excited for her at the same time, feel the sadness and loss of her leaving. And both were equally true. And so I think it's similar to values. And we were talking about it with the pandemic and, and sustainability, like both are true in the moment. And can I hold that space for both? And maybe it's not in this one area of sustainability that I'm not going to be able not to use something disposable, but now I'm not using disposable masks. I'm buying organic cotton, and I can afford to do that. So that's a privilege I have, an organic mask that will be reusable. So it's recognizing that there are going to be times, but what's helpful is saying, oh, okay, so the value of my integrity of taking care of my family, integrity as, the mom caring for my family was important, and before we knew much about what was going on, I wanted to care for them. And this seemed like the best way to do that in a difficult circumstance. And then this value of sustainability, and how can I do that at the same time? So the naming, in a way, getting it really clear. And yes, agreed with like connection time being really important in my household. And there's so much digital time. It's really difficult. Like that is a real thing that's happening. It's going to really change our children. I have two teenagers, an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old. So, and the connection time in our family, and then school time, and how do we or digital time, like there isn't an easy answer, but naming the values in our family, and that you can do work, the family work with this too. And so having family, not family values like they used to talk about in, I don't know, when was that happening? Like the 90s, 80s, 90s, when they were talking about family values. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like, because that was some set of like things we were supposed to have, and judgment and ickiness. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like, what do we care about in our family? What matters to us? What are we about? So that helps define it. And then out of that can come an idea like, oh, let's, go to the beach every Monday for lunch, or let's do something differently and sit outside together for a meal, or something that just kind of shifts in another area where we can find some space and room in that regard. So I think it's a yes and situation. Any improv folks here, but it's a yes and.
Absolutely.
And it's, but the the naming of values helps that hold like a little bit simpler, right? Than the overwhelm of like, I feel like I'm living at conflict in that regard. Because conflict does come up. It does. Your values can get, that's part of kind of living life in a pandemic, I guess. Or yeah. So I wanted to do the I Spy. What do you think?
Let's see, we are like
You're right there.
Yes, we were like right there at the end. So we'll have to see that one for next month.
Okay, we'll see it for next. Any final thoughts or any questions before? I want to be respectful of your time. We have 1 minute, but always available by email or phone if anyone has any follow-up that they want to discuss. But anyone have any questions?
And we will be doing this at the same time next month on the 11th.
Yes, so on December 11th
at 11 a.m.
At 11 a.m.
Yes.
And we're going to be offering the Discover Your Core Values workshop again. We did it last month, and we'll do it again in December on the weekends of December 6th and 13th. So it's a 2-part workshop. So it's the same workshop, but 2 consecutive Sundays at 11 a.m.
Yes.
So it's Jerome did it last time. Cynthia did too. Hi, Cynthia. And it's a really beneficial, fun, time.
A good time will be had by all, right?
Yeah, I'll send an email out. I think if you're all on my email, if not, go to the website. David, I don't know if you received it as forward, but if you go to my website, you can sign up that way, and then you can get it firsthand if you want.
Yes.
I don't send very many, but when I do, it's for things like this. So,
I just want to thank everybody for coming today. I mean, this is for me, it was a wonderful discussion. I think what I'm walking away with today is really about holding that space for several different things. So like when there's a conflict, just really being mindful that it's okay to look at the different values and see how they are operationalizing in the moment, and that one might be a little bit above the other and it may shift a little bit, but that just holding the space for those things, and then just being very gentle with ourselves in this process. It's a journey. It's a journey.
Yes. And note if the word should comes up, that's not part of this work. It's okay if it does. It's telling you that you're having a strong opinion about it, but it doesn't, this isn't that game. Because, and I think particularly with values, we were told, like, whether from the messaging out in the world, there's a lot of shoulds. And that's part of the mindset work that Sheila talks about, is moving away from that. So it's a little bit more my awareness and noticing that happen. So
yes. So thank you all for coming. It was wonderful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for participating.
Thank you for participating.
Thank you both.
Come back again. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye. All right.
Oh yeah, we can stop recording now. Let's see.